I'm Jenny Dew, and I'm from Dew Crew Books. I started my own publishing company because I had a project that I felt was really needed out there in the world. Usually I don't beg, but I'm begging you now because this is really important to me, and I feel like it's an important project for other children and families too. If I can tell you a little bit about myself and my history, I adopted 2 children back in 1994. Actually, not adopted them, but adopted them in 1997 because they had come from a real hard background. They had a lot of trauma in their lives, and I didn't know anything about trauma back at that time, so I didn't know why they would react in different peculiar ways that I had never experienced with my other children. And so as I was raising them, I found it really necessary to look for books that would explain emotions and how to deal with everyday life problems that come up. And they just struggled so much with their emotional basis. They really had, I didn't realize at the time, that they had suffered from trauma which created neurological damage in their brains. And at the time I thought, wow, you know, all of my parenting techniques that I've done on my other 3 just don't seem to be working anymore. And so it was at this point in time I started into a lot of therapy with my children and had a lot of time to contemplate what I should do to raise these 2 beautiful little kids. They are amazing people now, and I adore them. They put me through a rough time as I was raising them, though, and I'm sure other parents out there raising children with trauma will understand what I'm talking about. But I was, you know, I came to a point where I went to the library and I looked for books that would help my children to learn and process their emotions in different ways. And I couldn't find them. I think the closest thing I found was Dr. Seuss's The Sneetches. And it was cute. It kind of explained a few, you know, you can do better. These people are judging these people. And I thought, yeah, but that's not exactly what I'm looking for. What I'm looking for is how to explain an emotion to a child in a cute and fun way. And at that point in time, I thought, gal, I loved rhyming with my 2 kids. They loved the rhyming, my little trauma kids. They loved rhyming. And so I started thinking about a little book I could make. And I decided to use my trauma daughter's experiences. And so I started writing this poem that kind of sounded a little Dr. Seussy to me, because of course I loved the Sneetches. And it turned out to be this book here, The Grump on the Stump. And my daughter has actually told me she loves this book. She can laugh at herself in it. She can see the dramatic changes she went through. But she realized she had to make those changes for herself. And that's why I do what I do. I advocate for other parents now because I love these families. I love these children. I've so far made 2 books. My second one is called Kairisu, Our Bugaboo. And this book I wrote because my granddaughter was about to have a little sister join her family. And I knew she was going to be going through some of the processing of emotions that I went through when my little brother came home. And so I wrote Kairisu, Our Bugaboo. And throughout this book, I love the pictures and the illustrations. They're really cute. I'm going to start at the front first and just kind of go through a little bit. But I just love the way she contemplates and she thinks about what she's supposed to be doing and how Mom and Dad think about the processing that she's going through. And by the end, she's worked through all these feelings and has decided to be a wonderful big sister. And to this day, my granddaughter Kyrie says, I'm a wonderful sister. And I think it's fun when she'll relate to me what she learned from Kairisu, Our Bugaboo. And she brings that book up to me all the time. So I basically dedicate these books about children through the experiences I've gone through with my kids and with my grandkids. And so I'd say I'm kind of an experienced parent, but how can any parent know all of the rules? We can't. But these books that I'm trying to create are to start discussions, to get discussions going in families, to work on kid problems. You know, there's a lot of books out there, and I know there's a lot of cartoons and there's a lot of books, But I try to leave open-ended little things in my book, such as on the Grump and the Stump. At the beginning of the book, I was reading this book to a little girl, and I actually had little Melissa, I'm calling my character Little Melissa, coming out of a closet from her dark past. And this little girl asked me, well, what happened to her? And I honestly couldn't tell that little girl that was asking me what had happened to my daughter, because I've never known. My daughter's never known. But it affected the neurons in her brain, and she's had to deal with that for her life, and she's become a wonderful young woman. But it's taken a lot of therapy and a lot of things that we do. Now, what happened to me is I met Lee Baker and Stephen Sobieski, and they introduced me to David Nimitz, who is a wonderful artist. He's worked on some Disney films. He started out at Hanna-Barbera right out of high school. He's just an amazing artist, and what I love most about David are his expressions. He just gets the emotions that I'm trying to put across. And I absolutely adore the guy. And we work well together, because if I say, David, this is what I'm looking for on this page, he puts it in there. He gets the expressions just right. And he puts the comedy in too. I love his colors. I love his artwork. Love the guy. So if you want to give us a chance, what we're trying to do, I've published 2 books on my own, but this is a big project. We're going to need about $140,000 to complete this project. It's a big one, I know, but we have 12 more books in line. The next 3 I would like to work on are Size Me Up, Nick is the first one I want to work on, because as I was sitting out in a tent at my book booth in a park 2 years ago, the school teachers that would approach me would say, I want a book about bullying. So Size Me Up, Nick is about a little boy who comes along, and these boys rough him up a little bit at the beginning of the book. So little Nick, his dad is a judge. So Nick decides to carry his dad's judge robe and drag it around the city, you know, kind of like Pigpen. and he drags this robe around while he's judging people with his little clip chart. And so I think that's kind of a funny aspect of and then poor Nick gets into this problem of wanting to judge everything and everybody. And by the end of the book, another friend comes and tells him he's probably doing the wrong thing. And so at that point in time, Nick decides that he's going to change and he's going to make things up, but he's going to judge good things from that point forward. So I love that book. I love that story. The next one after that I would like to work on, that you would probably be helping me fund, is called There's a Hair on My Chair, about a little girl with OCD, and it's a very comical story. The one after that would be about my son who had a screaming problem. He would rage for hours. And, you know, and he loves his guitar now. He sings this loud screamo music, and I have to kind of smile, because I thought, well, of course it would be screamo. That's who he is. He has to scream to feel safe. And so He Will Scream, He Will Shout would be my 3rd book I would work on. I have 12 books completed with the illustration notes, but I've just run out of funds. If you could help me and help my team get this done, get this process going for us, I would so appreciate it. I'm not used to begging. I hate it. I'm usually a very independent person and try and do everything on my own as much as I can, but I really need your help. So if you could send my Kickstarter video to all of your friends and everybody else out there, I would really like to use this book project somewhere down the line to create a specialized boarding school for children with trauma. And I know that there's a lot of kids out there with trauma disorders. I mean, if these kids have experienced a bad surgery within the first 3 years of their life, if they've experienced being separated from a birth parent and becoming an adopted child, this can do some neurological kind of mess up in there. And we've got all kinds of wonderful therapies that can help these kids. And we want to keep our prisons from filling full of people with emotional and health issues. It's just not right. But we can do this with your help. So I'm hoping you'll see what I'm trying to do. And I'm just going to say thank you up front. And if you'll basically check into the things that are following this video. We will tell you, I'm willing to accept any donation you're willing to send. But I think for $25, I've got a $50 category, a $250 category you can donate to. And if anybody wants to go above that, I would even see about making you a character in one of my books. A comical character, of course you'd be, a cartoon character that David would draw from a picture you would send us. So if you're interested, you want to help me, I would really appreciate you sending some money. And I just am going to say thank you up front and hope we can meet our goal. Thank you so much.